I'm David DeSerto here at the Archbishop Fulton Sheen Center in New York City. And I'm delighted to be joined by acclaimed actor Martin Sheen to talk about the release of his wonderful 2010 film, The Way. Martin, welcome and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it, David. Good to see you.
Now, it's a beautiful, moving film directed by your son, Emilio, about the Camino de Santiago. And in 2010, when the film first came out, you had said that one of the themes of the film was that we can't do things alone, that we need other people. And, you know, if nothing else, that the pandemic taught us just how much we need other people. It told us about isolation and that need for community. So you could almost say that having come through that, this film is more relevant, more timely, and more important in its message today, even more than it was 13 years ago. Would you agree with that?
I would, yes, absolutely. I think that we're becoming more and more aware of how much we depend on each other, and how nourished we are by each other, and how, you know, we are all part of an international, worldwide family, whether we like it or not. And we are all responsible for each other and the world, which is exactly the way it is, because consciously or unconsciously, we have made it so. So I think we can heal the world by healing each other. And I think that the theme of the pilgrimage in The Way is part of that effort to unite the will of the spirit with the work of the flesh. Because pilgrimage is a physical journey, but it's more importantly an interior journey where we find our true selves, and we are reflected in each other. And so for that reason, I think it really is sacred. There's something extremely faith-filled in any journey, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. But we can't get away from our spiritual needs as well, whether we identify them as such, you know.
Absolutely. It's a film really important for our world today. And as you just said, while it certainly speaks about that need for community, the Camino itself, as the French policeman says right at the beginning of the movie, is also a very personal journey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did you take away from this personal journey with the film, both in making it back in 2010 and also your revisiting this journey today in 2023?
Well, it was a confirmation of my own personal beliefs, and it was an opportunity to explore in the arena where I make my living, to have a chance to express through a character my own personal feelings about my own journey, and to do that with my son and the rest of my family. In fact, the young lady you saw just a piece of here at the beginning, Renee, played the Dr. Tom's secretary, and has a couple of scenes at the top of the film. So, you know, it was a family affair. As you may know, my father was from Galicia, he was born not too far from Santiago de Compostela. And so there was a family connection from the beginning to the end. We could not make this film and be in this profession if we had an opportunity to do so. There was nothing more important or more personal for us to do. And frankly, it is the most satisfying thing professionally that I've ever done in my life. So I'm delighted that it's getting a chance for a re-release. And as you say, I think it's more timely and more important now than it was 10, 12 years ago.
There's a beautiful dedication to your father at the film, at the end of the film. The great film director Orson Welles once said that one of the most difficult things to capture on film is prayer. And this film, in many ways, is a prayer from beginning to end. Was there any particular scene or moment, either that was on screen or, you know, even in the making of the film, that struck you or Emilio as a particularly rich spiritual moment for you personally?
from the first word in the script until the last scene filmed in Morocco, which is where the last journey that Tom made. What everything was a prayer. The number of miracles along the way, beginning with the miracle of getting the film done to begin with, was a prayer. There was one scene where we were racing to get the sunset at the end of a scene, and Emilio rushed us all up at the top of this hill and was pulling the camera up, and everybody was very quickly trying to get this scene before the sun was gone. And one of the actors said, well, what is our motivation? And Emilio turned around as if he'd been slapped, and he said, to give thanks and praise, of course, and turned around and walked away. We all gave thanks and praise, you know. So, our motivation was the first prayer. And when you say prayer, there's silent prayer, there's public prayer, there's personal prayer, there's group prayer, there's family prayer. I think that our whole lives are a prayer. And sometimes the most profound prayers is when we're not aware that we're praying. You know, when we see a beautiful sunset, or we see that sunset in the face of a child, or witness a birth or a wedding or a funeral, or just recently we were watching the young first communicants in our parish. It takes your breath away that there is this sense of God's presence in all of us. And it's seen so very clearly in children all the time. So people are most vulnerable when they are exposed in a situation where they need to depend on each other. And that's what pilgrimage is. So this idea of prayer was seen so clearly in the faces and the reflections we had of each other. You know, we reflected each other. You know, when the lady said how devastated she was by the abortion, and how Tom realized the brokenness of that, and his brokenness touched that in her. And that's how I think we communicate with each other, is through our brokenness. And it's sacred, and it's what nurtures and heals us is through each other. That's community. And in a more intimate way, it's family, but it is a reflection of all our journeys. We're all on pilgrimage. You don't have to go to Spain or to Jerusalem or Fatima or any of the great religious sites for pilgrimage. You go inside your heart. You walk across the street to aid someone, or you make yourself available to someone. That's pilgrimage, because that's where we reflect each other, and we really see God in each other, and we reflect the very best part of ourselves in that. So it's all a miracle. You know? It's
beautiful, and you as filmmakers really invite the viewers to join you on that pilgrimage throughout the film. So when you reach the cathedral at the end, it's such a beautiful moment in the film, but it's also cathartic for the viewers as well, watching the different reactions that the four protagonists have. It really is a special moment in a very special film. I have to ask, being here at the Archbishop Fulton Sheen Center, speaking about personal, obviously you have a connection to Fulton Sheen. Could you share a little bit about that?
Well, I will. I'd be delighted. I was doing a play in New York. Well, we opened in 1964, but we ran. It was a very successful play called "The Subject Was Roses," and we were on Broadway for a year and a half. And in the second year of the run, a young lady came backstage after the play and said, "I understand you took your stage name from Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen. Is that true?" I said, "I did." She said, "Well, I'm his secretary, and I'd like to tell him that I saw the play, and would you accept an invitation to come and visit with him?" "I would," I said. And a few weeks later, I was invited to his office. At that time, he was an archbishop, auxiliary archbishop, but he was head of the promulgation of the faith in the Western Hemisphere at that time. And he had an office in the Empire State Building on 34th Street. And so I was nervous about seeing him. He was an idol growing up. I wasn't always aware of his theological message. I thought of him as this very powerful actor, and he was an inspiration just on that level alone. So I was a little nervous about meeting him personally, because, they say, be careful meeting your heroes, because for good or ill, you never know. So I grabbed Emilio and took him down with me for the meeting. He was about 3 years old at the time. He hated the subways because of the sound. The wheels on the rails was so loud and screeching. And so I kind of bribed him with I bought a box of Juicy Fruits, which would calm him on the ride. So we were living at 86th Street at the time. We got on the subway, went downtown, and get off at 34th Street. And he was enjoying the Juicy Fruits. We went upstairs, and the secretary escorted us into His Excellency's office, and he was so gracious and sweet. I sat down in the chair in front of him, and Emilio sat on my lap, and Bishop Sheen was, expressing his delight in meeting me, and he was honored that I had taken his stage name. My real name is Ramon Estevez. I never changed it, but so officially I'm still Ramon, but I'm AKA Martin Sheen. And so midway through our meeting, Emilio dropped the box of Juicy Fruits, and they tumbled all over the floor and were under the desk and everywhere. And he started screaming. And I said, no, it's okay. And I was so embarrassed. And Bishop Sheen got up, and the two of us are on our knees on the floor, walking, picking up all the Juicy Fruits, putting them back in the box. He said, oh, please, that's okay. It's fine. And he did it instinctively. So I was so moved by his spirit, his concern for this little boy who, lost his candies, and he was determined to help him get him back. So that was in 65. In 1969, I was in Rome doing a few scenes on a movie, and had a day off, and I took Emilio and Ramon, who were with me in Rome, to the Vatican. We were walking up the steps to St. Peter's, and here comes Bishop Sheen down with some colleagues, and he looked at me and he says, "Is it yourself?" I said, "It is, yes." And he said, "Is that the lad that dropped the Juicy Fruits?" And I said, "It's him, it's Emilio. Oh, it's so good to see you." And then, 10 years later, I was hosting Saturday Night Live in December 1979 when he passed away. And he was in state for the viewing across the street from NBC at the cathedral. So I paid my last respects. So that was a very moving time in my life. Yeah, he was an extraordinary man. And now, of course, as you well know, he's up for canonization, and let's hope that he's elevated to that status. Although I don't think he would be excited about it one way or another. His life spoke for itself.
Absolutely, those are wonderful memories. I'd love to speak with you so much longer, but I have just one last question. Speaking about being in Rome, the three most recent popes, and even popes before them, John Paul II, Benedict, and our current Holy Father Francis, speak so passionately about the importance of the arts. And someone like yourself, who has achieved so much high level of success within the art world for so long, and has also never shied away about witnessing your own personal faith. Could you share some thoughts about just your thoughts on the complementary role of the arts and faith?
Well, you can't separate the church from its very beginning until the present day from the arts. I mean, all the great artists were celebrated, particularly during the Renaissance, and with Michelangelo and Da Vinci and all of the great artists that contributed to basilicas, churches, chapels, paintings of religious scenes from the gospel, from both the Old and the New Testament. I mean, a large part of Europe before the Renaissance, and during the Renaissance, even most of the Catholic, populations were unschooled. They didn't read and write, so the artist had to instruct them on the scriptures, and they did it with pictures and paintings and artwork, and one of the most famous cathedrals in the world is at Chartres in France, and all of the the stained glass windows are the story of from creation to the resurrection. from the Old and New Testament, and so that the people would see the visualization, the visualizing of the Gospels, of the great stories in our traditions with the saints and the heroes and the martyrs from the first days of the way, which is what they were called, the first Christians. And that's how they learned the stories that we still cherish today and still revere, So yeah, art cannot be separated from faith, religion. Any organized religion has symbols and religious icons that are inspiring to us, that clarify in a lot of ways how we feel. In an instant, we get a picture or a symbol of someone that we admire, that we've learned about in scripture or in history, and the iconologists and the painters and the artists, from opera and look at all the great symphonies. Their greatest works are generally from and inspired by faith, hope, and love. Look at Beethoven's Ninth Symphony or Mozart's Requiem, or any number of great works. Their best work was reflected in their music for faith and religion.
Well, beautifully said. It's about that power of beauty. And speaking of beauty, the film again is just such a beautiful experience that adds another example of that marriage of faith and art together. So again, the film is The Way, re-released on May 16th in theaters through Fathom Events. Martin, thank you so very much for spending some time with us. And we invite you to the Sheen Center. It's our namesake, and we would love to have you here at some point. So whenever you're in New York, please do stop by, and we'd love to have you. But thank you very much for the time you gave us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. I'll take you up on that. Okay.
Thank you so much.